The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to present you a couple of articles that are like cutting edge science. And they're also really heavy into philosophy if you think about it. And these two articles have really absolutely nothing to do with each other, but I see a connection in the two. And we'll go through that as we go. They're very, very interesting stuff. So here we go. They're both from Futurism.com. And the first article, the headline is, "These Mathematicians Think the Universe May Be Conscious." It was written by Dan Robitsky, and it does not have a date. Theory of everything. Scientists are doubling down on a peculiar model that attempts to quantify and measure consciousness. The model, known as Integrated Information Theory, or IIT, has long been controversial because it comes with an unusual quirk. When applied to non-living things like machines, subatomic particles, and even the universe, it claims that they too experience consciousness. New Scientist reports. This could be the beginning of a scientific revolution. Munich Center for Mathematical Philosophy mathematician Johannes Kleiner told the magazine. IIT relies on a value called phi that represents the interconnectivity of a node, whether it's a region of the brain, circuitry, or an atom. That value represents the node's level of consciousness. The cerebral cortex, for instance, has a high value because it contains a dense cluster of widely interconnected neurons. But when IIT was first presented, calculating phi was impossibly convoluted. New Scientist reports that calculating the phi of a human brain would have previously taken longer than the universe has existed. But a February paper by IIT's creators, currently awaiting peer review, attempts to simplify the process significantly. Many academics remain unconvinced by IIT, in part because of its complexity, but mainly because of its far-reaching implications for a conscious universe. I think mathematics can help us understand the neural basis of consciousness in the brain, and perhaps even machine consciousness. But it will inevitably leave something out. The felt inner quality of experience. University of Connecticut philosopher and cognitive scientist Susan Schneider told New Scientist. And that is the end of this article. So in this article, you have a bunch of mathematicians and scientists that are saying that they believe that the universe is conscious. So it has the ability to think and to reason and to make decisions. The next article is also from Futurism.com, and the headline here is, "Physicist, the entire universe might be a neural network." It was written by Victor Tangerman, and it was published September 9th, 2020. The idea is definitely crazy, but if it is crazy enough to be true, that remains to be seen. It's not every day that we come across a paper that attempts to redefine reality. But in a provocative preprint uploaded to ARXIV this summer, a physics professor at the University of Minnesota Duluth named Vitaly Vanchurin attempts to reframe reality in a particularly eye-opening way, suggesting that we're living inside a massive neural network that governs everything around us. In other words, he wrote in the paper, it's a possibility that the entire universe on its most fundamental level is a neural network. For years, physicists have attempted to reconcile quantum mechanics and general relativity. The first posits that time is universal and absolute, while the latter argues that time is relative, linked to the fabric of spacetime. In his paper, Van Turen argues that artificial neural networks can exhibit approximate behaviors of both universal theories. Since quantum mechanics is a remarkably successful paradigm for modeling physical phenomena on a wide range of scales, he writes, it is widely believed that on the most fundamental level, the entire universe is governed by the rules of quantum mechanics, and even gravity should somehow emerge from it. We are not just saying that the artificial neural networks can be useful for analyzing physical systems or for discovering physical laws. We are saying that this is how the world around us actually works, reads the paper's discussion. With this respect, it could be considered as a proposal for the theory of everything, and as such it should be easy to prove it wrong. The concept is so bold that most physicists and machine learning experts we reached out to declined to comment on the record, citing skepticism about the paper's conclusions. But in a Q&A with Futurism, Van Turen leaned into the controversy and told us more about his idea. And this is what I'm about to read you is an interview between the Futurism site and this scientist Vitaly Van Turen. Futurism. Your paper argues that the universe might be fundamentally be a neural network. How would you explain your reasoning to someone who didn't know very much about neural networks or physics? Vitaly Van Turen. There are two ways to answer your question. The first way is to start with a precise model of neural networks, and then to study the behavior of the network in the limit of a large number of neurons. What I have shown is that equations of quantum mechanics describe pretty well the behavior of the system near equilibrium, and equations of classical mechanics describes pretty well how the system's further away from the equilibrium. Coincidence? Maybe. But as far as we know, quantum and classical mechanics is exactly how the physical world works. The second way is to start from physics. We know that quantum mechanics works pretty well on small scales, and general relativity works pretty well on large scales. But so far, we were not able to reconcile the two theories in a unified framework. This is known as the problem of quantum gravity. Clearly, we are missing something big. But to make matters worse, we do not even know how to handle observers. This is known as the measurement problem in context of quantum mechanics, and the measure problem in context of cosmology. Then one might argue that there are not two, but three phenomena that need to be unified: quantum mechanics, general relativity, and observers. 99% of physicists would tell you that quantum mechanics is the main one, and everything else should somehow emerge from it. But nobody knows exactly how that can be done. In this paper, I consider another possibility that a microscopic neural network is the fundamental structure and everything else, i.e. quantum mechanics, general relativity, and macroscopic observers, emerges from it. So far, things look rather promising. Futurism. What first gave you this idea? Vitaly. First, I just wanted to better understand how deep learning works, and so I wrote a paper entitled Towards a Theory of Machine Learning. The initial idea was to apply the methods of statistical mechanics to study the behavior of neural networks, but it turned out that in certain limits, the learning or training dynamics of neural networks is very similar to the quantum dynamics we see in physics. At that time, I was, and still is, on a sabbatical leave, and decided to explore the idea that the physical world is actually a neural network. The idea is definitely crazy, but if it is crazy enough to be true, that remains to be seen. Futurism. In the paper, you wrote that to prove the theory was wrong, all that is needed is to find a physical phenomenon which cannot be described by neural networks. What do you mean by that? Why is such a thing easier said than done? Vitali. Well, there are many theories of everything, and most of them must be wrong. In my theory, everything you see around you is a neural network, and so to prove it wrong, all that is needed is to find a phenomenon which cannot be modeled with a neural network. But if you think about it, it is a very difficult task, mainly because we know so little about how neural networks behave and how the machine learning actually works. That was why I tried to develop a theory of machine learning in the first place. Futurism. How does your research relate to quantum mechanics, and does it address the observer effect? Vitali. There are two main lines of thought, the Everett's or many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, and Bond's or hidden variables interpretation. I have nothing new to say about the many worlds interpretation, but I think I can contribute something to the hidden variables theories. In the emergent quantum mechanics, which I considered, the hidden variables are the states of the individual neurons, and the trainable variables, such as bias vector and weight matrix, are quantum variables. Note that the hidden variables can be very non-local, and so the Bell's inequalities are violated. An approximated space-time locality is expected to emerge, but strictly speaking, every neuron can be connected to every other neuron, and so the system need not be local. Futurism. Do you mind expanding on the way this theory relates to natural selection? How does natural selection factor into evolution of complex structures or biological cells? Vitali. What I am saying is very simple. There are structures or subnetworks of the microscopic neural network which are more stable, and there are other structures which are less stable. The more stable structures would survive the evolution, and the less stable structure would be exterminated. On the smallest scales, I expect that the natural selection should produce some very low complexity structures, such as chains of neurons, but on larger scales the structures would be more complicated. I see no reason why this process should be confined to a particular length scale, and so the claim is that everything that we see around us, particles, atoms, cells, observers, etc., is the outcome of natural selection. Futurism. I was intrigued by your first email when you said you might not understand everything yourself. What did you mean by that? Were you referring to the complexity of the neural network itself, or to something more philosophical? Vitali, yes, I only refer to the complexity of neural networks. I did not even have time to think about what could be philosophical implications of the results. Futurism. I need to ask, would this theory mean we're living in a simulation? Vitali, no. We live in a neural network, but we might never know the difference. And that is the end of this article. So in the first article, you have scientists saying that they believe that the universe has a conscience, that it is aware. In this second article, you have scientists saying that they believe that the entire universe is a neural network. It's all connected like a neural network, like your brain would be. So the connection here for me, when I read these two different articles, is you have consciousness, which takes place in the brain, and you have a neural network that functions much the same way a brain functions. And this screamed out to me as a scientific theory that is suggesting that not only does God exist, but they believe that they can prove it. Now you might say, whoa, wait a minute, James. That's one hell of a leap. All right, you're going from they believe that everything's connected in the universe like a neural network to all of a sudden that proves God. Well, when you add the first article in where you have the universe having conscience, right? So it is aware. It is a consciousness. And it is all connected like a neural network. Then you start thinking about religion, okay? Not just Christianity, although that's the angle I'm coming at it from because I'm a Christian. But in a lot of the major religions of the world, a lot of them teach that God is everywhere. Christianity definitely teaches that God is everywhere. He's omniscient, he's omnipotent, he sees everything, he knows everything, he's everywhere you look. Now you take that and reconcile that with these two articles. If the universe has a consciousness, right? It is aware, it is alive, and it is a neural network. It's all connected like a neural network, and God is everywhere. Then in theory, a way to say that would be we are living inside God. Now think about this like bacteria, okay? On our skin and in our bodies live millions upon millions of bacteria. They are living creatures that exist inside our bodies. We are not aware of these creatures that live inside of us and on us at all times. We know they're there because scientists have told us they're there. Somebody has looked in a microscope and seen these things, and now they tell us, hey, they're there. But if nobody had ever told you that you had millions and millions of different creatures living inside of you, you would have no way to know that. If you look at your hand right now, you cannot see the millions of bacteria that are living on your hand as we speak. The millions of little microscopic organisms that live on you and inside of you, you cannot see unless you look through a microscope. But to them, you are their entire universe. They have no inkling or no thought in the world that there's more outside of you. You are their entire existence. Now, I don't think they can think anyway. So it's not like they would even realize that you're there. They're just kind of existing inside of you. They're little bitty microscopic things. They're not capable of rational thought or logical thought. But think about us kind of the same way. That if what these scientists are saying is true, and the universe has consciousness, and the universe is a neural network, could it be that we are inside the mind of God? God created everything. In a way, it's almost the same as me as a writer when I create an entire world where my characters exist. When I write a novel, I create an entire world. And I populate that world with different people, different characters, different animals, different all kinds of things. I dreamt that stuff up. It came from my mind, from my imagination, and I brought it to life. Even if it's just on the pages of a book. It may not exist in reality, but in the world of the book, it exists. It's there. I created that. Okay? In a way, that's kind of the way God made all of us, if you think about it. He thought us up, He imagined us, and He created us. If you look in the Bible, it doesn't say that God gathered up, lumber and He built a house or whatever. He spoke things into existence. Just the sheer will of God brought forth the heavens. The sheer will of God brought forth water and land and the fish in the sea and the animals and us. Now it does say that He took and made us out of dust. Made man out of dust of the earth and breathed life into his nostrils. And then He made woman from man's rib because man was lonely. And let's face it, women make life worth living, right? So God, being infinitely wise and knowing everything, sees man and he goes, you know what he needs? He needs a chick because chicks make everything better. So he made him a woman. Now he wanted Adam to love and to take care of that woman and to shelter that woman and to treat her like a queen. So he made her out of part of Adam so that they would be connected. So when God made man, he did use some materials that he had made because it says that he used the dust and then he used Adam's rib for Eve. But the rest of creation, he just spoke into existence. He said, let there be light. Let there be water. Let there be all these things. He spoke it into existence. So he had the thought, vocalized that thought, and it became. Where would that thought come from? It would come from the mind of God. We associate the mind with the brain because that's where thought comes from. The brain is a neural network. You see what I'm getting at here? It's really interesting to me how scientists now are saying these things, and we'll see if it shakes out, right? We'll see if this becomes a true thing or not. They are theorizing this right now. They're talking about it. These studies have not been peer reviewed yet, so there's no way to know for sure whether they're on the money here or not. But this is the latest thinking. This is the latest theories that these scientists have. And to me, it's extremely interesting because it correlates perfectly with what was written in the Bible over 2,000 years ago. Very, very cool. Now, I'm not saying 100% this is fact and this is exactly what it is because, like I said, cutting edge stuff hasn't been proven yet. But when I read these two articles, that is the connection that it made in my mind. And I thought, what an interesting idea. And what an interesting thing to talk about on the show and get everybody's opinion on. Because let's say you're one of those people that are 100% science, you don't even believe God exists at all, right? You're one of those evolution, trust science, Big Bang kind of people. Well, you look at something like this, and if this turns out to be peer reviewed and to be backed up and becomes the new science, you're kind of in a quandary now because you're saying, wait a minute, I say there's no God. I say that we are born and we die and that's it. That nobody created us and there is no heaven, there is no hell, all this stuff. But now the science that I have put my faith in is telling me that the universe has a consciousness and it is actually a neural network, so there is something out there. Now, whether you believe that is the Christian God or whether you believe it's something else, what science is saying here is that there is something. There is a consciousness out there that is in control. And what is God if not a consciousness that is in control of all things? So let me know down in the comments when I put this on YouTube what you guys think about this, because I think this is extremely interesting. Now, keep in mind, I'm not giving a sermon here. I'm not telling you this is gospel. I am saying I read these two articles, and it's really cool how it kind of corresponds and correlates to what's written in the Bible. So what I want to do now is I'm going to throw over to Old Boy. And Old Boy is not a Christian at all. He is actually a pagan. He's a Wiccan. So he's going to come at this from an entirely different point of view. And I think it'd be very interesting to hear his thoughts on these articles and what this could possibly mean if there is an all-encompassing consciousness out there that is the universe, and if it is a neural network. So, Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. The universe being conscience has a conscience. I'm not going to doubt that at all. We believe that anyway in the pagan beliefs that Earth is the Mother Earth and it has a conscience. Trees, everything. And I'm more on to the darker side of paganism, guys, just so you know that, and he knows that. But we do believe that. So pretty much I do believe that to a point. Now, what it is, I can't say. But do I believe everything's connected? Probably is. I'm not going to argue that. I won't even go any farther than that. I believe that's probably true. Everything's connected. There's good, there's bad, but there's reasons for it too. I also believe that. I think there's reasons for everything that happens. I think that this is actually a pretty good show, because I was like thinking about, how am I going to come off on this one, because I'm not into all this. But then he started talking about consciousness and Vitali and stuff like that, what he wrote and stuff like it. There's a possibility. Now, I don't think it's a matrix like the Matrix. We all living into like this machine, but that would make sense. No one knows what God is, or you can't really say a man, because in the Bible it says God, we are made after God's image, but God's not a man. So it's infinity. If there is a God or a goddess, whatever you want to believe, it's infinite. It's not even, we can't even comprehend what it is. We don't know what it is. So in reality, there could be a lot of truth to this. And I believe it. I believe that we're all connected. I will say that. Now, thinking about this, it would make sense, because everything works in a certain way. Like if you look at animals, they mate, they survive, and it's the survival of the fittest, pretty much. And that would make natural selection. And we do that even though we pretend we don't. Human beings think, but we still do it without thinking. Majority of us look at people and think something before we really know them, and then find out later they could be a lot different. I hate to say it, we judge people. We all do it. We all do it. And we don't try to, but we do it. It happens. You'll see somebody, well, I'm not attracted to him, but I like somebody on the outside, inside. No, you're not. 90% of people look at somebody and they're attracted to them. But that doesn't mean you're going to be with them, because, yeah, you might. And then you start talking to them and you find out, well, that personality doesn't match what they look like. They might be the most beautiful person in the world, but their personality sucks. So I don't like them like that no more. But that happens. Natural selection happens. I believe that. I'm just going off on what he was talking about. I believe everything's ran for a reason. It's ran in conjunction with everything. Like a bird feeds off of insects. The insects feed off of flowers and weeds and stuff like that. And some insects even eat food, cockroaches and stuff like that. But they've mutated over years. But it all has a reasoning. And I think what James is talking about is, whatever the conscience is in this world, maybe we're just this big game that we're controlled by this one being. I don't know what it is. It's not a human being. We all know that. It just knows what's going on. And that could be a possibility. But I don't believe we're the only game it's playing. I think it's playing numerous games all over the galaxy, or the universe, or whatever you want to say. You would say stars, moons. And maybe we're just one of the little levels of other things that are going on in the world. That's why you see aliens. Maybe it's another group of people who have been around longer than we have. Doesn't say how long everything is. We're never going to know that. And what I'm seeing is with this, and what James is telling me with the articles, it makes a lot of sense. I believe there's good and I believe there's bad. I also believe there's a control, that it can balance out. It can't be a certain balance. More bad and more good. That's just my opinion. I don't care what everybody else has a different opinion. And I believe that we live in that balance. And I think right now, not trying to get off the topic, I think the balance is more evil than it is good right now. And that's just without the world. And I think that's why things are happening now all over the place. That's going to rebalance itself. And I think that's what's happening all together. And it would make sense because I think things happen for reasons. And it's just with everything, like volcanoes, what else? Fires. I think that this stuff just doesn't happen. I mean, some of it does, people light fires and stuff, but I think stuff happens for reasons. It was meant to be. There was a reason for us. It wasn't just we came from monkeys and we evolution and now we're this. I don't believe that's I don't say that I don't believe in evolution, but I don't believe that was all. I believe that there's a reason why we're here. Just like with everything. There's a reasons why everything's the way it is. Like animals, insects, humans, birds, dinosaurs were here. I believe they died out for a reason. I believe that we're going to die out one day for a reason. But I believe there's a selection. And I think something will replace us maybe. And I think, or there's other people that lived before and maybe, but I'm going to give you, I'm going to throw out a limb. Maybe stuff that's happened with the Bible and or other texts, whatever you want to say, is stuff that's happened to other worlds that we just found out about. Maybe it happened here on Earth too, but maybe some of this stuff is happened other places, and now we're finding out more and more because we're digging up stuff. We're finding, like the Egyptians, with the pyramids and stuff like that. And there's like chambers that have never been opened, and there's stuff supposed to be in there. We're not supposed to find out, or we do know about. We're just not talking about it. And I think, and if you think at certain points in the Earth, they said there's magnetic fields, like the Bermuda Triangle. It's hard, stuff happens there all the time. People lose power, ships fall, planes, boats, they all disappear or they lose signal. There's other parts like over there by Stonehenge. There's a lot of sonic waves and stuff like that. And there's certain other places too. But I believe there's points all over the world and Earth. Maybe there's more energy going there from this being or beings or whatever. And it controls everything that goes on. Maybe we do have, like they said, we have, what did they say it? We have a choice. But sometimes we make the wrong choice and we pay for it. And the opposites can happen, like a reaction. You were supposed to do this, but you didn't, so another thing happened that probably wouldn't have happened, but it did. You see what I'm saying? I know that's going to be hard to explain. Basically, say a moon was supposed to hit us, or asteroid, not a moon. An asteroid was supposed to hit us, but instead it hit the moon because it just changed course. But it still has a consequence here because stuff is going to come hit us. It won't be as bad, but it's not going to be good. It's like, say that I went to the store, but I decided to go 10 minutes later and I got in an accident. But if I would have left 10 minutes before that, I didn't get in an accident. You see what I'm saying? Or I go into the store and buy eggs. Well, if I would have went 5 minutes earlier, they were 50 cents less. Well, I went in too late. But if I went 5 minutes earlier, I would have got them for 50 cents less. It's just things happen for reasons. I don't believe it just happens accidentally. Yes, you have control of your conscience and what you do, but I believe it's already set there. You just make different choices. And I think that's what happens throughout the world and everything. I believe everything happens for reasons. It may look crazy and it may be bad, maybe the worst things that ever happened, but there's a reasoning for it. And I believe something controls all this. It isn't like, well, we just die and that's it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I don't believe that. I know some people do. They think we're here and we're done and that's it. I don't believe that. I believe, that would make no sense if you, and some of these people are going and hunting ghosts. That makes absolutely no sense. That means you don't believe in afterlife, but yet you're going on, and they're there. That what I'm saying is when people say ghosts don't exist or stuff like that, what do you think is talking back to you? It's just made up words and, things happen because people set it up. I thought that too, till I actually went and started doing this stuff, and this stuff's real. That's a whole nother story. I believe they have something to do with the consciences. I believe that maybe ghosts have something to do, or maybe it's another dimension. We don't know what it is. There's different things that we're never going to understand and never really know. I'm not a big science guys. The only reason I started talking about this because he was talking about the conscience thing. The every part of it I don't know, but like I said, this is really interesting because I believe that we're all connected, and I believe something does run everything. Everything. To a speck of dirt, to the plane and flying in the sky, to the sky. There's something there. Maybe it's not what we think of. It's something that we could never understand and we never will. It runs everything we do. We could be a big game. And you make the choice of what you're going to do in that game. It makes a lot of sense. And it has a conscience. And sometimes we do stupid stuff. It makes us pay for it. So I don't know if you guys got anything from me. I'm not a big science guy, guys. Sometimes he does these shows, and I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to come up with what I'm going to talk about. But this one I know a little bit about because I kind of believe it. I'm not going to sit here and argue, James, that doesn't exist. There's something to it. There's got to be something. We didn't just. People just think it just happened. Bam, we're there. Then that would be pointless. We have to have something. Doesn't matter you're good or bad. You have to believe in something, in my opinion. I mean, there's people who don't believe in anything, and that's fine. I don't hate you guys or nothing. That's your opinion. That's cool, but I don't believe that. I believe there's something else there. I don't know what it is, but there's probably a possibility that I totally agree with James on this one. There's something there. There's something that it might have a conscience. It knows better, and it feeds off us, and we play with that conscience. So we're a part of it. Everything's a part of it. Like he was saying, a system. It's probably true. I see it happening. But there you go, James. Like I said, I'm not a big science guy, but yeah, that's all I could say on this one.
I always enjoy talking to atheists. And I have several friends of mine that are hardcore atheists. And one funny thing about atheists is they are always so smug. And they scoff and they laugh at you because they think it's silly that you believe in God. They will say things like, oh, it's so funny, you believe in a invisible man in the sky that controls everything. But when you really get down to it, there is a huge gaping hole in the theory of atheism that they just can't overcome. They will say that the universe was not created. God did not create the heavens and the earth. They will point to the Big Bang. They will say that at one time, all of the matter in the universe was concentrated down into a single ball. And all at once, for no apparent reason, this ball exploded. And all of the matter in the universe began expanding outward at very high speeds. And this is what created all the galaxies, all the stars, all the planets, everything. They will point to that, the Big Bang Theory. And they will laugh at you and say, see, that it wasn't God that created everything. It was simply a mistake. This ball exploded. And that's why we have everything. Let's get past the point where explosions don't cause life to be created. Let's get past all that. And let's ask the fundamental question. Everything in existence has a beginning and an end. Nothing can ever just always have been here. Everything has to have a beginning. That's logical. But at the same time, something had to have always been here. That's also logical. Because something had to have always been here, otherwise there'd be nothing. Because if everything has a beginning, it couldn't just begin out of thin air, out of nothing. Something had to have been there to give it the materials to start in the first place. So if you're talking Big Bang, you say all of the matter in universe, one ball. It explodes, expands outward, right? Where did that ball come from? What created that ball in the first place to cause the Big Bang? Something had to have always been here. There is no way around that. Now, the question is, what is that something? We all agree something had to have always been here. There is no way to explain it otherwise. Something has to be eternal. There has to be something that has no beginning and has no end for there to be anything at all. That's truth. So if that is the case, if something has always been here, right away you have to ask yourself, what is that something? Now, these scientists are saying that the universe has consciousness. Okay, the universe is everything. For those that don't know, the universe has everything in it. It's everything we know, everything we see, everything we can't see, everything in existence is in our universe, according to science. Every galaxy, every solar system, every star, every planet, every moon, everything exists inside the universe. So if they're saying the universe has a consciousness, that consciousness most likely is the thing that was always here. So if they're saying that that thing that was always here is the consciousness, and they're also saying they believe that the universe is a neural network, that would function the same way your brain functions. So you have consciousness, you have brains, you have thought. That's God. Or at the very least, if you don't want to say it's God, right? At the very least, it is an entity of some sort. It is a thinking, reasoning, creating entity, a presence, a personality, a consciousness that we have already established has always existed. Now, the nuts and bolts of how the creation happened is left up to interpretation a lot, because the Bible simply says that God spoke it into existence, that he created. It doesn't explain the science of how he created it. It could have been God had all the materials of the universe in one little ball. And he decided, he thought, he spoke into existence everything. So he made that ball explode to get all of the matter and all the raw materials and the building blocks that we needed for everything spread out across the table. Look at mankind, look at existence, look at everything we know as a puzzle. When you first buy the puzzle, it's in a box, right? just like it's in a ball. You cut the box open, you dump all the pieces out onto the table. What you're doing is you are spreading all the building blocks out on the table so that you can look through it and find all the pieces you need and put them together the way you want to form a picture. That could have been the same way God created everything. He could have spoke it into existence, made the ball, exploded the ball. All the pieces are out on the table. Now he can start grabbing what he needs and putting it where it needs to go to create the picture, to create life, to create us, to create worlds, to create solar systems and suns and stars and all the different stuff. Well, kind of silly because sun is a star, but whatever. You get what I'm saying. Now, a lot of this is theoretical. A lot of this is trying to give analogies and examples so that you understand what I'm trying to say. We don't know exactly how God did anything that he did. But we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was done. Because we exist. We're here. Now, think of the analogy of the puzzle. We dump the puzzle pieces out on the table. That signifies the Big Bang happening. Okay? All of the building blocks of the universe are spread throughout the table. So that now all the pieces are there to create life, to create everything. They just have to be put together. Now, what makes the puzzle go from a bunch of pieces laying on the table to a puzzle put together and that has pictures in it? It is your conscious thought, your mind. It is your reasoning skills, your ability to take those pieces, put them together in a cohesive manner to where they make sense. So in the example of the Big Bang, you have all of the material of the universe spread out on the table now. What are the odds that those puzzle pieces will just form themselves together and make the picture without you doing anything? Pretty much 0%. What are the odds that all of the building blocks of life in the universe are spread out everywhere and they just happen to come together in the very exact way that they have to come together to form life? And the life forms in the exact place that has the exact right conditions for it to be able to survive. I would say the chances of that are probably pretty near 0 too. So what I'm saying is something had to always be here. That something had the ability to reason and to think. It had a consciousness. It created us. Now, in the Christian belief, that's God. In other beliefs, it's other things. But what I'm telling you is the idea that there's nothing simply isn't logical. It doesn't make any sense. And remember, I've worked in the science field. I was a scientist. I can tell you, you have to go by the evidence. You have to go by fact. You can't, there's no room for stuff that can't be proven. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that there's nothing because something had to always be there, and you can't get past that point. There's no way you can use logic or rationalize your way past the idea that something had to always exist. Otherwise, there's nothing. And that's my bottom line. Now, if you look at all the evidence, you put it all together here on what we presented tonight and what the article said and what the Bible says and everything, it points to a creator. Somebody with consciousness, with the ability to think, that put all these pieces together to form the picture that is us. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to old boy. And I'm going to let him give his shout outs and everything like that, and we will wrap this puppy up.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. Thank you for following us on Parax Radio. It's another year, 2021. We didn't get to do a show last week because James wasn't feeling too well, but now we got the first show from the new year going. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for following us on Parax Radio. And if you want to follow us anymore, or listen to any more of our shows, go on James Hershey's YouTube page and subscribe. If you guys want any merch, well, he'll tell you where to go. Shirts, cups, covert mask, all kinds of cool stuff. So I hope everybody has a great night. I hope everybody has a good year. Be careful, be safe. I know a lot of things are going on right now. So I hope everybody has a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you and have a great night and blessed be. Bye.
Yeah, as old boy said, I couldn't do the show last week because I couldn't breathe. I have pretty bad asthma, and I had to take my father to appointments, and I had to wear one of the face masks while I was taking him to his appointments. And whenever I put one of those things on for more than a few minutes, it messes with my asthma really badly. So that day was the day that we do the show, and I just simply couldn't because I couldn't breathe. I was hitting my inhaler and just trying to breathe. I couldn't talk for more than a minute or two without just breaking down in a bad coughing fit and all that. So that's why there was no show last week. I had to take the week off so that I could get my lungs to work again. But don't worry, I'm fine. I have no problems now. It was simply because I had to wear the mask for the day. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that it made you think. And let me know down in the comments when I put this on the YouTube channel what you guys thought of the articles and what you guys think of the show and of the entire idea. Because to me, this one was extraordinarily interesting. Because I always like when science lines up with the Bible and lines up with the idea of God. To me, that is super interesting stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where all of the episodes of Staring get put up. All the episodes of the TV show we do, Tales from the Abyss, go there. There's also paranormal news videos and just a ton of different stuff on there. It's all 100% free. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos on there. So please go subscribe to the channel and enjoy it. It's there for you guys to enjoy. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. There's shirts, hoodies, posters, pillows, mugs, all kinds of stuff. And there's multiple different designs, all kinds of cool stuff there. I try to keep the prices as low as we can. And the quality is pretty awesome as well. So if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. Go and get yourself some merch. With that being said, guys, I just want to say thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show, and it's good to be back. And I would also say that right now is a pretty tense time in our history. And sometimes passions get a little heated, and there's a lot of debate going on and stuff like that. But I would say to everyone listening, remember that we are all brothers and sisters. And we need to love each other. We can debate. That's not only perfectly fine, but it's actually healthy. Because in a free society, debate is critical. You have to be able to discuss and talk about your differences and different ideas in order for there to be any kind of compromise or solution. But what I would say to everybody listening is, let's just try to remember that we're all Americans here. Now, you might be listening in another country, and if you are, then same basic thing applies in your country as well, whatever you're going through. But I'm mainly speaking here to my American audience. Just remember that we're all Americans. And we're all brothers and sisters, and we need to love each other, man. We can disagree. That's okay. We can even really, really disagree and have completely different viewpoints on things. But that's no reason we have to be cruel to each other. We should love each other. Look at staring into the abyss. I am a pastor. I am a Christian and I'm a pastor. I preach, okay? Old Boy is a pagan that is more on the darker side of paganism. But yet we are able to coexist on this show and get along splendidly. We are very, very good friends. I love Old Boy like a brother. And we don't just do this show together, we talk outside of the show as well. We are good friends. Now, do we believe the same things? Hell no, we don't. There's a lot of difference in our belief systems. And we have had debates back and forth, and we went on for hours and hours and hours talking before. But we are always respectful of each other, and we love each other, and we treat each other with respect, and that's important. And I think that needs to be said, and that needs to be remembered in our country, is we got to stop with the BS, guys. I mean, there's too much fighting and arguing and hating each other. It's nuts. It's okay to debate. It's okay to disagree. But that doesn't mean we have to be disrespectful and hateful towards each other. It's not cool. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the show, and I love you guys, and I will catch you on the next one. Until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.